This is Nightline.
Tonight, Operation Midnight Hammer. Details of the U.S. attack on Iran's nuclear facility.
There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran.
The historic mission as B-2 bombers scrambled to drop never-before-used bunker buster bombs. The dramatic before and after photos. Iran striking back at the U.S. military base in Qatar. And the apprehension back home over possible retaliation on U.S. soil. How some cities are responding. Plus, Barbara Walters, tell me everything.
She asked the question that nobody else had asked.
The new Hulu documentary pulling back the curtain on the legendary journalist.
You don't have any, forgive me, any talent.
Fearlessly firing questions at newsmakers.
Did you ever order anyone killed?
At superstars.
I know you don't want to talk about guys, and I won't push it, but how are you going to find anybody?
And at every president since Richard Nixon. And how the legend known for getting her subjects to open up.
You think you're sexy? I know I'm sexy.
Kept her private life under wraps.
Barbara had her fill of romance. She thought a lot of guys were very sexy.
And the stifling heat wave blanketing nearly half the country, causing more than just temperatures to jump.
From ABC News headquarters in New York, this is Nightline.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, reverberations around the globe after the historic military actions of the United States against Iran. Just hours ago, President Trump announcing a phased-in ceasefire had been negotiated between Israel and Iran. But will it hold? The world watching, waiting, and worried. It was a bolt out of the blue. A fireball in the night sky. The U.S. striking at an Iranian nuclear facility. Part of that historic attack of 3 nuclear sites over the weekend.
I don't think anybody could have predicted where it even started, much less where it ended up.
A show of force then met with a show of force. Earlier today, the Iranian military firing missiles at an American air base in Qatar. The Iranian military claims this is footage of those missiles. U.S. officials saying all but one of the Iranian missiles were intercepted. No American forces were hurt, and no damage was done to the base in the attack. The strikes are the latest in what has been an escalating conflict unfolding in the Middle East, when Israel and Iran began a renewed clash with each other earlier this month. But the U.S. only became directly involved this weekend, as the U.S. and Israel sought to hamper Iran's ability to develop a nuclear weapon.
No president has ever made a decision to go take a military action against Iran, and you saw President Trump do that.
There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days.
And today we're beginning to see some of the first images of the aftermath of those U.S. strikes.
We don't know whether those halls where the centrifuges were enriching uranium, whether they were collapsed or whether they're still in service. So it looks like a lot of damage was done, but we really can't know for sure until people get on the ground.
Dubbed Operation Midnight Hammer, the barrage included the largest strike by B-2 stealth bombers in history.
This is a plan that took months and weeks of positioning and preparation so that we could be ready when the President of the United States called.
The U.S. jumping into a conflict that's been boiling over for weeks. The operation carried out in complete secrecy, unfolding as many across our country slept. Beginning at 12:01 a.m. Saturday morning, B-2 bombers took flight from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, 2 of them heading west towards Guam, those with trackable movements. This was a decoy.
The world was tracking these 2 bombers headed to Guam without realizing that secretly 7 bombers were headed eastbound.
Those with transponders turned off and minimal radio communications, launching a short time later, headed towards Iran. The 18-hour flight to Iran, including multiple mid-air refuelings and in-air support.
The B-2s linked up with escort and support aircraft in a complex, tightly timed maneuver requiring exact synchronization across multiple platforms in a narrow piece of airspace, all done with minimal communications.
There were fighter escorts out in front of those bombers. And pilots and the crews in those bombers and fighters had never worked together before. They were coming from different bases. It was nighttime, which is always more of a challenge.
Approximately 5 p.m. Eastern Time Saturday, a U.S. submarine launching 24 Tomahawk land cruise missiles at key surface infrastructure targets for nuclear facility Isfahan. By 6:40 p.m. Eastern Time, the 25-minute mission inside Iran's airspace activating. U.S. fighter jets sweeping in to protect the B-2 bombers from possible enemy missiles and warplanes. The B-2s dropping 30,000-pound massive ordnance penetrator weapons, also known as MLPs or bunker busters, onto Iran's most complex nuclear enrichment facility, Fordo. Experts say it's carved at least 300 feet below the surface of a stone mountain and reinforced with concrete.
The one at Fordo is noteworthy because this is the one that the Iranians have really wanted to protect the most. But what you've got is this 30,000-pound bomb, and it has a delayed fuse, and then at that point it explodes. We're talking maybe 5,000 pounds of explosives. And the whole concept here is to collapse this underground facility.
It was the first time ever those MOP bombs had been used in a strike.
The remaining bombers then hit their targets as well, with a total of 14 MOPs dropped against 2 nuclear target areas.
A senior administration official telling ABC the president giving the final order to strike on Saturday, while the planes were in the air and after diplomatic efforts failed.
It was a decision by President Trump on his own after, I think, probably a lot of lobbying from Prime Minister Netanyahu, but at the same time, I think it was seen as a limited involvement by the United States.
A top Iranian diplomat condemned the U.S. attacks on its facility shortly after.
The Islamic Republic of Iran will continue to undertake necessary, resolute, and proportionate measures to neutralize it.
Following the U.S. military strikes, Iran launched a barrage of missiles at Israel. A military official told ABC 20 to 30 were fired. My colleague Ian Pannell is in Tel Aviv.
It only took a few hours for Iran to respond, and this is one of the areas where the ballistic missiles landed. You can see the entire facade of what was an apartment block has been totally ripped out, just the remnants of people's lives left inside.
Iran claims it targeted Israel's main airport and a biological research center. Israeli forces firing back, claiming their most extensive attack on Iran's capital city of Tehran. American military bases in the region had already been taking proactive measures, seen here in these photos at a U.S. military base in Qatar. The U.S. relocating dozens of planes 2 weeks before Iran responded today.
Our forces remain on high alert and are fully postured to respond to any Iranian retaliation or proxy attacks.
What we saw today was clearly an attempt by Iran not to ratchet up temperature in the conflict, to get the U.S. to say, okay, we see what you did. If we don't do something to show that we counteracted the U.S. attack, then we're going to lose face and we're going to lose credibility and the regime could collapse.
On U.S. soil, apprehension as Homeland Security officials warn of a heightened threat environment. But sources say there is no current credible threat against the country. And President Trump claiming on social media tonight that a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Iran has been reached, although neither side has confirmed the agreement.
24 hours from now, we should have a better idea. Can we take a deep breath, sigh of relief, or do we need to continue to be concerned if Iran doesn't uphold its end of the bargain?
Amidst the fear, a brief moment of completion. These are the bombers safely returned to their base in Missouri after 37 hours non-stop in flight. When we come back, we switch gears. Barbara Walters tackles some of the world's most famous newsmakers, dictators, and superstars. A new documentary looks at her no-holds-barred style and what went on when the camera stopped rolling. Welcome back. The seemingly fearless Barbara Walters inspired legions of journalists and redefined celebrity interviews. She pulled no punches, sugarcoated nothing, and never seemed to take no comment for an answer. Here's my Nightline co-anchor, Juju Chang.
A great number of people who think that you two are spoiled brats. What do you say to them?
I'm just a normal kid.
Oh, Eric, you're a normal kid who killed your parents.
Barbara Walters always kept it real.
Martha, why do so many people hate you?
Each and every one of us has people that love us and people that hate us.
No, not everybody has people who hate them.
Never letting anyone off the hook.
What about the drinking and drugs, cocaine?
I really, really enjoyed it. The cocaine especially.
Does he hit you?
He shakes, he pushes, he swings. Sometimes I think he's trying to scare me. And just recently, I've become afraid.
Landing verbal punches.
What frightens you?
I hate it when you ask these kind of questions.
A trailblazer with more than 50 years in front of the camera. First female co-anchor of a morning show. And first at the male-dominated evening newscast. From 2020 to creator of The View. Sitting down with every president since Richard Nixon, as well as soon-to-be presidents.
Do you ever have self-doubt?
Well, if I did, I wouldn't tell you.
She asked the questions everyone wanted to know, from dictators.
In our country, we read that you are unstable. We read that you are mad. You know that those things have been printed. What do you say to that?
To pop superstars.
How do you feel when they call you?
Wacko Jacko. I have a heart and I have feelings. I feel that when you do that to me.
And everyone in between.
You showed the President of the United States your thong underwear. Where did you get the nerve? I mean, who does that?
The ups and downs of her life and complicated legacy, now examined in a new Hulu documentary. Barbara Walters, Tell Me Everything.
She asked the question that nobody else had asked.
I know you don't want to talk about guys, and I won't push it, but how are you going to find anybody? You don't really act. You don't sing. You don't dance. You don't have any, forgive me, any talent.
And asked it in a way that always hit a nerve.
Why the tears now?
The thing about Barbara is she was never afraid to say the thing everybody was thinking. And it sometimes came in the form of what seemed like rude questions, but I think that she had a way of asking them, like it kind of set people at ease.
Sitting down with Barbara Walters became event viewing.
Ever do drugs in front of your child?
My God, what a question.
Why didn't you have your nose fixed?
She had a vision that celebrities are news, and she turned out to be right. They were newsmakers.
How hard was it to find those gems, and what was it like to come across them?
It was hard. There was so much footage.
Director Jackie Jusko began her career at Nightline and rose to become an award-winning producer.
We kind of started on this frantic search to be like, can we find moments that are sort of off the cuff? Like, when was she really being herself, like truly herself?
But are you afraid of showing emotions?
There's certain things I just don't enjoy sharing. What's there to know?
You would drive me nuts, and I would drive you crazy because I would be saying, but you know.
Well, we could try it and see if it worked out.
It was in those unguarded moments that you could see something flicker across her face.
Yeah, and it was all different things. Some of it was flirtatious, some of it was just funny.
I think we'll stop and reload.
At a time when men ruled the newsroom, the documentary showing Barbara's tenacity. Often, instead of breaking down the door, she found a way around it so other women could follow.
Whether it was her looks or her voice, just the fact that she was a woman, there were people that just didn't believe in her. And she loved proving them wrong.
Okay, let's go.
She jumped to ABC News after her successful run with NBC's The Today Show.
And when I went on the air, the big thing for me was I could write my own questions.
However, this new chapter at ABC, co-anchoring the prestigious evening news, would prove to be a rocky road.
Take 3, cue Barbara.
Here was my chance, historic, they told me, to be the first female co-anchor of a network news program. Well, I thought, what an opportunity. It was a mistake.
Harry Reasoner made no bones about the fact that he did not want her there. He didn't want any co-anchor, and he certainly didn't want her.
The decision was to welcome you as I would any respected and competent colleague of any sex. By noting that I've kept time on your stories and mine tonight, you owe me 4 minutes.
And boy, did she show them. Time and time again, Barbara's stories, not only news-making.
I was among the few American reporters on the plane with President Sadat, and I asked if he would agree to do an interview from Jerusalem with Prime Minister Begin.
History-making.
President Sadat, you said there might be
a somewhat different position down the road.
You are always like this, Barbara.
I tried to.
And also record-breaking. Her sit-down with Monica Lewinsky, the White House intern who had an affair with then-President Bill Clinton, became the highest-rated news interview of all time, with more than 70 million people tuning in. Despite the nonstop demands of news, there were other interests.
When I was in my 20s and 30s, when I should have been dating, I was working day and night. I didn't have those kinds of years. I didn't have those years until I was in my 30s and 40s. Mine was a very delayed, romantic period.
Barbara had her fill of romance.
She was never cynical about love, and she definitely was a romantic kind of person. But romance just never worked in her life for long.
Her job was the love of her life.
It was only fitting then, on her last day as co-host of The View, the show she felt was her greatest achievement, Barbara received an emotional send-off.
And we all have been influenced by you, are here for you today. And we all proudly stand on your shoulders, Barbara Walters, as we honor you. Please welcome Diane Sawyer, Robin Roberts, Lara Spencer.
All these women pay homage to her. What impact did she have on the women coming up behind her in journalism?
It's almost like you run out of adjectives to be like, she was the first. She was the first so many things. Like, you see that and you're like, oh, I can be that.
But they also have to suffer the slings and arrows of being that first.
For sure. And she certainly did. You know, like, there's one way to succeed, and it's a valid way to succeed, to become one of the guys, right? But she didn't do that. She instead figured out ways that she could use her uniqueness, her personality, to beat out the guys, and she did it.
Barbara was a tour de force, smart, uncompromising, tough as nails, and she couldn't have done it any other way.
This is my legacy. These are my legacy, and I thank you, all of you.
Our thanks to Juju. Barbara Walters' Tell Me Everything is streaming now on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+. When we come back, millions of Americans ride a giant heat wave and what gummy bears have to do with it all. And finally tonight, got a question for you. Is it hot enough for you? More than half of the country is suffering in stifling temperatures. Here in New York City, the subway sizzled at 96 degrees as the city tied a 137-year-old temperature record. In Baltimore, sweltering passengers were stuck on an Amtrak train. They lost power, they say, with no AC. In Missouri, incredible video showing the moment this buckling rose sent a car airborne. And in Colorado, a group of children got creative and let the blazing sun melt down hundreds of tiny gummy bears to make one giant one to share. And a child shall lead the way. That's Nightline for this evening. Catch our full episodes on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+. We'll see you right back here same time tomorrow. Thanks for the company, America. Good night.